Welcome to Race Realities Costa, our first informational huddle, and I'm glad you are here. My name is Debbie Stroman, the founder of Race Realities and also the director and leader of Men of Color retreats in Costa Rica, in particular in a wonderful hometown that I call Coweta. So the first question is for everyone, in particular you, Miles. I want to ask you, why are you here? And so I'd love for you to unmute, or you can just put that in the chat box. Why did you decide to join this informational session today?
Yes, Costa Rica, even before I got to know you well, Dr. Stroman, was a big part of my heart because it's the first time that I ever went international when I was 18 as a Carolina student. And so seeing a different part of the country, but then also like an echoing kind of a calling back to the Pura Vida mantra. I remember seeing that for the first time, getting off the plane and then seeing it again when I was boarding the plane to come back to the United States. And so in addition to some of the pictures that I've seen, and just the area itself and the water, it's really just a call back to something that is somewhat familiar to me.
Well, thank you for that. Well, we're going to talk about that today and much more. And so, our agenda today, I'm going to share with you my why. How did this all happen? I'm going to introduce to you one of our amazing facilitators, Shawn Pressley, who's going to talk about his why and his perspective. And then I have a special guest, Mary Lightfoot, who's become a sister friend of mine. She lives in Costa Rica all year round in our shared hometown of Coweta, and she's written a wonderful book talking about breaking borders. So if you want to know more about moving away from the United States, if you want to learn more about what it takes, what are the risks, why you should celebrate doing it, Mary's going to have some answers for you. So I'm going to start off with just telling you a little bit more about myself and why I decided to go off on this venture with Costa Rica. So, as some of you know, I have a very, very long career in the sports world. I grew up outside of Philadelphia and I played just about every sport. And I grew up in a community that really did not have any barriers for girls or boys in terms of the sports that we played. We played everything together. So I played kickball, volleyball, basketball, football, everything. And so I've always been close to boys. And yes, I was one of the girls in the neighborhood that was known as a tomboy. And so I continued that closeness with sports, having played sports at all levels, all the way through college. And again, spending time with lots and lots of men. And then fast forward, professor at the University of North Carolina, where I had the opportunity to not only learn and share, but to also coach basketball. So being with the Tar Heels on the coaching staff, became close to the men's team under the leadership of now deceased Coach Dean Smith, and also with Coach Roy Williams, who was the most recent coach before Coach Hubert Davis. Again, spending time with men. And then moving on with research and my clinical work, being one of the directors for the Black Men's Brain Health Conference, which focuses on Alzheimer and dementia, again, men. So I've seen the heaviness that many brown and Black men experience. I've heard their cries. I've been around lots and lots of girlfriends who talk about what they feel their men are going through, whether that is a relative, whether it's a lover, whether it's a colleague. And so when I fell in love with Costa Rica in 2021, and I actually spent time at a retreat center in Coweta, I realized that why not? Why not have retreats for men of color? And so here we are today. So I'm excited to be a part of an amazing team of people who are helping me bring this to life. And so that is my why. I just want to help men, and in particular men of color, when you think about whether it is from a personal level or from a professional level or institutional level, the stressors. And yes, I'm talking about racism. And so that is my why. And even after every retreat, I get renewed again because I'm just like you. I'm human. I have choices. I get to decide what I want to participate in. I'm very blessed in that way. But I said, after seeing the men and what they go through and how they are transformed, they're replenished, they are renewed, they're more confident, I say I have to continue to do this work. So I'm going to pass the baton to Shawn so he can share his why.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you, Dr. Stroman. My name is Shawn Pressley, one of three of these are brilliant facilitators. I say brilliant lightly, but we do have one that's called, his name is Matt Genius, and he is definitely a genius as well. But part of my why, I realized that when I was invited to Costa Rica, first of all, going out of the country is an amazing feat. Always wanted to go to Costa Rica, needed the space to be there. But once invited into this environment, the real why was just to unplug from daily life. What's really going on here in the United States? And what I come to realize is that as men, as young boys, as young children, we've been socialized to think and see things in a certain type of way. You may have heard these things before. Uh, don't you cry, stay strong, suck it up, be a man. You probably heard some of those things before. Imagine hearing that all the way up to almost 50 years old and never going back to understand why they said that. What about the emotional side? What about the capacity to allow yourself to speak and say exactly how you feel without judgment? This is my why. My why was to go to Costa Rica and see what's really taking place. But when I got into the space and I saw the pure nature of what God has truly created and intersecting that with the program that has been set in place by Dr. Stroman and the wonderful facilitators that, including myself, it allowed us to create something very powerful, very beautiful, to where we can actually roll back that cover and be completely exposed and still feel safe in a space to where we can grow. That's what's important about my why.
And I thank you for that. Well stated. And I'm actually getting pretty emotional just hearing you speak about that because it is a very, very powerful experience. I like the clarity that comes with being in Costa Rica. So, what is Race Realities Costa? You know, as an academic, as a researcher, I think it was back in 2013 where I was really touched to the point where I took action when I learned of a racial analysis and having a clear understanding in terms of how we got to where we are today. You will not find it being taught in schools, whether it's PK through 12, and definitely not higher education, and certainly not in this environment. So even though I grew up in a race conscious family, I did not have the analysis. And so once I had that analysis and was able to share it with thousands of people all across this nation, and then falling in love with Costa Rica, I said, why not combine this? And so the foundation is for men of color, for people who've been affected by the structural racism that takes place in this country and around the world. And so having 7 days, 2 days are basically travel, but to have men come to a beautiful retreat center called the Goddess Garden in Costa Rica, in Cahuita, and to spend time with themselves, as in men speaking to men, men speaking with men. We have just a little bit of feminine energy, but the idea is that they spend time together and they go through topics such as faith, family, and then various techniques, whether it's breathing, exercises. We actually talk about things that have to do with money. All these things, it's being shared in a space with just men. And then, of course, we have to enjoy Costa Rica. And that means going out and having excursions. And whether that might be going to a waterfall, horseback riding, getting on a boat, or just spending time by themselves and enjoying nature, going to the beach. So that is the idea behind Race Realities Costa, a very simple concept, but yet very, very powerful and empowering for men. Shawn, before we pass the baton to Mary, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about the curriculum and what you all do. That would be helpful.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we start to unpack different complex things that are taking place in our lives, especially when it comes to relationships. I mean, most of us, most men, we think we have it, we got it all sewed up. I was one of them. I thought I had all the answers to those things, but the curriculum showed me a lot of different things about how communication is very important, making the capacity for your loved one, understanding love languages. Those things are very important. But if you want true stability, true understanding. You have to delve within self. We also teach about forecasting, the laws of manifestation, understanding those things, money, um, but most importantly, becoming the leader that you are, understanding who you are as an individual. And we're not saying we got all the answers, but what we do know is while being in this magical space, seeing that black sand, sometimes going to white sand, hey, I'm just telling you, it's all over the place, different things you can do. Something magical happens. And I've experienced it multiple times. The magic of being in Costa Rica allowed me to come back and to flourish in life in a different type of way. And those lessons that I've learned, the brotherhoods that I've formed consistently still show up in my life. And they're stark reminders of we still matter and our feelings matter. That's what's important. So I thank you for allowing me to share that. And trust me, I do speak a lot. I speak across the United States, but this right here, this this group, this opportunity, it is very priceless. So I encourage you, just think about it. Think about not only just unpacking yourself, but allowing yourself to speak, but also thinking about just being away from the hustle and bustle of the United States for 7 full days, having meals, some that you've never tried before in your entire life, and seeing some things that you never thought existed, that you never thought existed. Thank you,
Thank
Doctor.
you, Shawn. You know, you talked about Costa Rica being special. I definitely doubled down on that. And so I believe another secret ingredient for our work is nature, biomimicry, and actually spending time learning from nature. Everything you could possibly want or dream of is found in nature. And so we have to follow its principles. But far too often, especially in the fast-paced life that we live in the United States, we don't have time to sit, or we won't make time to sit with nature and learn from it. And we definitely do that in Costa Rica. So I found a family. I found a family in Costa Rica. And a big part of that is Mary. Mary is an amazing person. And Mary, in fact, I don't remember how we first met, but I'm so blessed that we have met. Mary and her family live in Costa Rica. And she's written a very important book because with all the tension and all the stress that's going on in the United States, there are a lot of people, white, brown, and black, who are saying, I need a second place. I need a regular vacation home. I need to move outside the United States. And Mary and her family has done that. Her book is available on Amazon and other places where you might shop, but it's called Breaking Borders, Your Guide to Leaving the United States. So, Mary, I'm passing the baton to you to just give us a general overview of your book. And then I want to open it up for people who might have questions about the retreats or Costa Rica. Mary?
Thank you, Debbie. My purpose for writing the book was number one, I'm a wife of an Army veteran. And with him leaving the U.S. for so many chores to Iraq and Afghanistan and then coming back to the States, we were noticing the difference in his mental health. And we talked about often about leaving the U.S. because his mental health was, even in Iraq, violent as the place it was, his mental health, his peace that he would have among the people, the locals, was so different than among what was happening in the U.S. So we talked about leaving often. And so we finally got the opportunity and we relocated here to Costa Rica. It's been 3.5 years now. We moved with three of our girls. We have five total, but we moved with three of our three youngest girls. And I saw a huge shift in not just him, but in myself and our daughters. They're now bilingual. We have a lot more peace. And so I wanted to be able to reach out to the diaspora and say, you know what, you don't have to deal with what's going on. There's so much out there. There's a big world out there. There's a big place. And I wanted to be able to help other people that look like me be able to do the same thing. Pack up and leave and find other opportunities, create generational wealth somewhere else, somewhere outside of the US, and be able to have the tools to be able to do that. So that's what prompted me to put the book together. Um, and so I sat down and I started talking to him. I started talking to friends and figuring out what exactly did we need to be able to just kind of pack up and leave the US and still feel comfortable, to still feel like we could find connection and community. Debbie, we met Debbie actually next door at Tanos's house. She was
Yes.
just wandering through a friend of ours property, looking at, he has a an amazing property, amazing garden. And we just happened to come by one day and she's like, "Hi, I'm Debbie." And we hit it off right away. I
Yeah.
learned a long time ago that the family that you create outside of your family that you were born is sometimes more important than the one that you were born with. And so Debbie has become one of those family members, and we have a community here that we really appreciate. Our girls are happy. And so I just wanted to be able to do that and provide that same opportunity to other people who didn't know it was possible. So that's why I created the book.
So can you speak to the Caribbean side? Because as we know, the marketing arm for the country will send people to the Pacific side, where it is more Anglo, more European, more developed. A lot of the stores that you see back home, you'll see over there. But there's something special about the Caribbean side that we both love.
We travel back and forth. We've traveled to several other parts of the country, and one thing we noticed different about the Caribbean side than the Pacific and anywhere else is the community we have here. We have a sisterhood, a brotherhood, the relationship among all of us is so strong. We can walk down the street and almost everybody we recognize. If we don't recognize them, we're like, oh, they're tourists. We know exactly who they are. But it's not just the people, it's the culture. It's my children, we like to say now our kids have a culture. We left the US and we traveled, throughout different places, living in the US with them. They don't remember anything about a specific culture. Where here they learn the food. My 15-year-old, she cooks and she cooks Caribbean food. She's speaking Spanish. They've grown accustomed to the music, and so they've developed a culture which was completely different than they found in the States. And my 20-year-old has come, and she's at first it was kind of boring because there's not a lot here. It's not like a big Walmart. There's no big malls. There's no big movie theaters. But what she's learned was that nature was so key. So the last time she was here, she was just intrigued with being in the water, with sitting in the yard. Just our yard connects to the national park. So you can just sit there and watch monkeys. You can watch the birds. You can listen to the sounds of Costa Rica and kind of unplug from everything. And that was huge for her because she's used to the hustle and bustle of being in the States. She's used to that fast life, got to hit the pavement every day. And that was just a huge change. And now for her, she's like, I think I could see myself being here a whole lot more often, a whole lot more frequently because she was able to unplug and unwind and really embrace life at a slower pace.
Thank you for that. So well stated. So I want to open it up to any of our attendees to ask questions of myself, Shawn, or Mary, and definitely want you to consider Costa Rica, even if it's outside of Race Realities Costa, but consider it because it's a healing country. It really is. Miles?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment before the question. I've again more so been on the Pacific side, I guess, where um, I wasn't undergrad, but I'm hearing a lot of like belonging is the word that kept coming to my head. And so it's one thing to feel included into a community. Maybe like I live in Atlanta right now, so it's very easy to be around a lot of Black people. My sister-in-law and her mother are from the Bahamas, and so like when you mentioned the Caribbean side, it's like I've gotten a little bit of that mixed with our diaspora of how different that is. And so just the belonging part, in addition to the water and everything you all have said, is what caught my attention. But my question was um, for for you, Shawn. I had heard this term, and actually Matt was the first person to say this. I'm curious if it came from Costa Rica, Matt, but somatic abolition. I had never heard those two things. I know what both the words are. I just didn't know that they were a phrase or a grouping together. And so I'm curious from a Black male standpoint, in addition to what you've expressed was healing to you and was healing to other men, when you talk about like the somatic abolition or just like the things that are going on in America compared to what you experienced in Costa Rica, can you just talk a little bit about like the embodiment that you felt in addition to the experience?
Well, two things that I want, and thank you for that was a powerful question, but it's two things I want to highlight. I want to highlight a real life experience that took place. It was me, Matt, and one of our other brothers, and we wanted to go to one of the supermarkets, and it's called Super Negro. And of course, in my mind, I'm saying to myself, okay, I got to get a picture with this. We got to go over there. We go over to the Super Negro, and all of a sudden, they have like security guards that are there. And while we're walking through there, I'm being highlighted. My senses of being in the United States, I'm feeling some type of way about this. So when I get over there and I'm saying these things, and I didn't say anything to the security guard, but I'm feeling some type of way, and I get back and then we get in the car, and I speak out about it. I'm like, hey, you know what? They ain't really changed up until I said, I'm from the United States, and it wasn't even that. The truth of the matter, Miles, is that I had been socialized through the rhetoric, the turmoil, the strife of being a black man in the United States, that I had brought those traumas, those traumatic experiences to a place that had none. You see, this is not Walmart. This is not a Target. This is not one of those places. This was more so of a place that couldn't afford to lose one of those things. All they were doing is protecting what's theirs. Didn't say anything, didn't give off the vibe that they were saying, profiling, any of those things. I myself highlighted those things because that's what's deep embedded inside of me because of childhood traumatic experiences. Some of us, I'm 50 years old. I don't mind telling my age. I don't look it. I know you don't believe it, Miles. But anyhow, I realized that I was told as a kid, keep your hands in your pocket. Don't do certain things. Don't make them look at you, any type of way. And those things carried over. I brought that to a country that didn't even have it. You know what's so profound though, Miles? We went to a place called a reggae bar, and wonderful food. It was a place they were cooking jerk chicken, and I wanted some of the jerk chicken. Ordered the jerk chicken, and I said, "Can I cash app you the money?" It was like, "No, we don't have cash app." I said, "You take Apple Pay." I said, "Well, I don't have the money right now. Let me see if I can get some money from one of my friends." This is what they said. This is what the difference, what I mean, community and culture said. This is what they said to me, Miles. Don't worry about it. You can pay me when you come back the next time. This is 6 months in between. If that doesn't resonate with your heart about the difference between community and culture, I don't know what else could be. They're taking their heart over and sharing with someone that they barely even know. But we had that connection because of not only who we are, but what we look like and how I am now carrying myself because of some of these practices that we've learned in this format, this whole curriculum. As Mary stated, mental health is it's serious, but the transformation of seeing these things is in real time, without all the distractions of the phone and the internet and all these other different things. I could tell you so many stories, Miles, right now that it would blow your mind. Dr. Deb or Matt doesn't even know this story that I just shared. This is the first time I've ever said this to anyone because it still resonates with me.
Thank you,
Wow.
Shawn.
I am moved by that. I really am. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Chi, welcome. Any questions, comments? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Stroman. Definitely some powerful words by everyone. I think the conversation about community, right, and I guess the side of the island or the country which you guys are on, I think that's interesting, right? I think um, for me, I could see a difference between the two different sides, but in general, I guess how do you balance being an outsider, right, in the country? Um, And then how do you also balance that want to what's the word for it? Make things seem like they're perfect when we know that things aren't perfect, right? So I guess how do you still stay within yourself in paradise, right? And not get lost in in how good things are. So I could see there being a very tough um snap back to reality after a retreat like this, right? Spending 7 days and being at peace and having all this. How do you still keep that level of peace when you come back into a place like North Carolina, for example?
I'd love for Shawn and Mary to address that.
Ladies first. Mary, I'll let you go first.
I know for myself, when I've come back to the States, it's funny because I always have to remind myself where I'm at. I always have to remind myself the mentality switch. And it's almost like you've heard, I don't know if you've heard about code switching. And it's like, let me remind myself really quickly where I'm at and make that adjustment, but not allow myself to fall back into the hustle and the bustle and allow myself to remember the things that I have there. Try to remember the peace I've learned. Try to remember, to slow down. Um, just know that there's something else out there, so I'm not stuck. That's what I always remind myself. I'm not stuck. This is not somewhere that I have to be permanently. I know that this is only temporary, as long as that's what I decide. So reminding myself of that, especially when we would come on vacation and go back and forth, I always have to tell myself, I'm not going to be here permanently. I have other options.
That's beautiful, beautiful framing. And that's options mentally and physically. Yeah. Shawn?
So, Chi, right? So
Yes, sir.
this is the thing. This is the thing that I want you to take from this. It's not about you switching it back and forth. It's about you reprogramming yourself. We have to shed the layers of what we've already adopted. It's not not saying we don't need to hold on to certain aspects, but what I've learned about being in Costa Rica is once I can be with self and see self, the inner self, and I can work on me and only me. When I come back to the States, I operate in the love and compassion that I've learned, the skill set that I've learned. So here in the United States, I'm in North Carolina myself right now. I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm a programming manager. I'm in the packaging industry. I have to manage people. I'm a mentor for kids. I go back into institutions, the prison industry, where I mentor people who are incarcerated. I do a lot of different things. But what I've learned about Costa Rica was if I operate in what I've learned, I start to shed that old reality of and falsehood of what I used to be. I don't want to be that anymore because you see how far that's gotten us. It hadn't gotten us but so far, especially when it comes to relationships and how we see certain things in our lives, even communication wise. Regardless if it's in a intimate relationship or friendship or whatever else it may be, tone, how we speak to people is just it's just completely different. So being in Costa Rica, it allowed me to be amongst people who don't have those. Not saying that it doesn't exist, but it doesn't show up the way it does in the United States. I never saw road rage. People drive there is no road rage. People will cut lanes, all types of things. They will hold up and direct traffic on the bridge. And guess what people do? People pay them for their services. And they don't have to do these things. It's just the fact of understanding where you're going and where you've been. And being in the United States, can you pick a state that will be different from the North Carolina? The same outcomes are happening in every single state, every single area, the same way over and over again. And just 1 week in Costa Rica, not only is my diet changed, my diet changes because you're eating much healthier. Your mental capacity changes because you're seeing things that you've never seen before. You're meeting indigenous people who live off the land. You're swimming in waterfalls. You could go snorkeling, horseback riding. You can go to Limon and learn about Marcus Garvey, someone who've made huge strides. And what most people don't know, Kawita is like the number one tourist spot on that side. It's the number one tourist spot because it's all natural. Everything is all natural. This is what's so profound about this, Chi, and I'll shut up because I'll keep going on and on. I'm used to I show up in the rainforest. I got shoes on. I got all kind of stuff. I'm making sure I'm getting covered up. Not once did I think about a tick falling on my head. After 2 days, I'm walking around in slides. They got poisonous frogs out there, all kind of stuff. But I learned that those poisonous frogs can't get to you unless you cut. Bugs may creep into the room, and over a period of time, guess what you start to do? In the United States, I'm trying to go get some spray, kill everything. Now I'm saving the bugs and putting them back outside. That's how Costa Rica changes you. That's what I mean about understanding love, the biomimicry, and all these other different things. But I'll give you one quick more story and I'll leave it alone after that. Ants. Just think about this. Ants. When you think about ants in a certain type of way, you're like, okay, let me get rid of these things, get them out of my way. I learned something about ants. Ants live in a colony. In Cahuita, we went to the national forest. We saw that one colony was probably larger than this room that I'm in, and this is a very large room that I'm in. But the sole purpose of those ants, they had worker ants going out getting a specific leaf to nourish a mushroom that feeds the entire colony. But if something is going on and a large vibration comes out, there's a larger ant comes out that protects those small ants. And if they can't get the job done, guess what? There's another warrior ant that comes out bigger than that. You may say to yourself, Shawn, what does that got to do with the price of tea in China? Well, let me show you what that means. What that means is that community itself reminded me of Cahuita, Costa Rica. How you have workers, you have protectors, you have warriors, all to protect the queen itself. Just that law in nature showed me how we, as a people, have fell so far off our track. Because right now we're all about self. At one point in time in our history, we protected our queen. That's what we need to get back to.
Wow, Ashe, Ashe. So I'm going to put in the chat box the website, racerealities.com. It is the holiday season, the time for giving and sharing. There is a holiday special going on now, an early bird special. Whether it's for you or a friend of yours, if you want to gift it to someone, if you just want to remind someone that there is something out there for you. It might not be 2026, it might be 2027, but we have to be intentional. That is the one thing that's important in this work. You must be intentional. And especially when we have so many things coming across our plate, if I can use that frame of reference, we have a lot of things that are drawing our attention in terms of loved ones who are being hurt or harmed, or there are a lot of wonderful things going on in your life. And so we might lose focus. So when it comes to our own healing and community care, we have to be intentional. So I ask you to share that with your friends and family. As we close out, I would love for Chi and Miles to share a takeaway, one thing that you got from today's session. And then I also like to introduce Matt Genius, who is one of our facilitators, an amazing, brilliant therapist out of the Atlanta region. I'd love for him to share some closing thoughts. So Chi and Miles, if you could open up and just share at least one takeaway from today's informational huddle.
Go ahead, Chi.
Yeah, thank you, Moss. I mean, I think one, it's the power of community and how you guys have found that in Costa Rica, right? Especially on the Caribbean side, which to me makes a lot of sense. I've traveled in the Caribbean a few times, and there is that definitely bond. But also, I think understanding that the process of trying to heal, right, is something which requires us to maintain that level of self and love once we come back to different spaces, right? So we take that love with us to where we go to, and that's how we kind of don't let the pressures of what's around us take that away from us going forward.
Thank you. Miles?
Yeah, I just really wanted to highlight something that Mary said that was very simple, Mary, but I think for somebody that's living it current state, when I juxtapose it with the relationship that I had with Dr. Stroman for 14 years, just that there's another option. And just not even just being a person, but just being a Black person, but even having been raised by a lot of Black women. I think specifically, um, from what you shared at length, Shawn, which I really appreciate. I mean, me coming from Birmingham, Alabama, when I met Dr. Stroman, like there was a lot that I carried that I didn't realize. Growing up in the Deep South, going to the University of North Carolina, which is obviously the South as well, there's a lot that I have carried that I was unaware of. And even as I stand at 32, just this sense of like there's another option. And even traveling, like I mentioned, going to Costa Rica when I was 18, just as my mind expanded, it was more of like I still come back to the hustle and bustle and just the ability to live not just abroad, because a lot of my friends, I'm sure you have experienced this, Mary. It's this like, oh, I want to go live in Amsterdam or London, or I want to live in Europe, like, but no one ever talks about the Caribbean, at least in my sphere, in my world. And so again, having the option of another option, in addition to the awareness from following Dr. Stroman's work since 2021, it's like, oh, like you really like this place, not just, for obvious reasons of promotion of it, but the this session has given me an awareness of another option, and the option is not as far away as some other people like to venture out. And so, some solace, but also some awareness is what the takeaway for us for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Matt, can you join us?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. Oh my gosh, what a great session. For me, it's the brotherhood. Being there with brothers and being able to formulate something where each one of us felt safe to be vulnerable, to be transparent, to allow ourselves to attach to each other in a way that creates wellness, right? And it's just a magical feeling to be able to cry with your brother, to laugh with your brother, to climb a tree, to be silly with your brother. All of that is healing. All of that is a part of resetting our nervous system. And it is so vastly different from what we feel here in the States. I'm in Atlanta right now in traffic, but I think the difference is I've had such a good taste of what being outside the country allows my nervous system to experience, that I can recall some of those memories and allow that to be what dominates my mind, my heart, and not to be in a rush, and not to feel pressured, and not to feel unseen. I feel very seen in every circumstance now because I know my value in a different way, right? And so it's really a magical experience that I believe transforms all of those that participate in this retreat. So if you have the opportunity, if not for you, for a friend, for a brother, an uncle, a nephew, whomever, I know all of us will come back differently. One example is we were there the first time we went. By the second day, most, if not all of us, were feeling this emotion of not enoughness because we weren't going at the same pace we would normally be in the States. We weren't working as much, checking our laptops, turning in reports, and we were like, what's this feeling? I feel like I got it. And it's because, honestly, sometimes we just don't know how to relax and feel at ease with doing nothing. And doing nothing is doing something. You're allowing your body, your mind, your spirit to rest, and rest creates restoration. And so it's such a magical space. I hope and I wish that more brothers would join us on our next trip in April. I'm looking forward to being with all of you there. And yeah, that's it.
Well, that is a lot, Ashe. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for everyone who's joined. You can learn more at racerealities.com. You can connect with us directly right here in the States before we travel down to beautiful Costa Rica. And a big thank you to Mary for sharing her truth and sharing her words in her book. So thanks again, and thank you for being a part of Race Realities Informational Huddle.